for the whole bottom part of the hull.
For every acre of reef that we have out here, about a ton of coral a year is scraped away by these fish and deposited.
And they also have a scuba boat or two that takes you out from the park area. In addition, all these other dive shops. All the dive shops in this area dive the state park and the marine sanctuary. Here in the concession area, they have a scuba boat, and they have 2 other snorkel boats. They have a deluxe snorkel boat. Various ways to get out there. Luckily, in the last 6-8 years, we've really done a lot here in the park land base. We've made it, as I mentioned, more of a park atmosphere. We've got picnic shelters. We've got 2 man-made sandy beaches. We've got 2 roped-off snorkeling areas. One that's got a reconstructed shipwreck with cannons and anchor, ballast rock from 2 or 3 different shipwrecks throughout Florida. Everything's authentically 200-year-old stuff, but it's right in the swimming area. It's just right offshore. Anybody without a boat can get out there. If you can walk out there, you know, it's within a protected area. And it's laid out just like you would see a shipwreck site, just the area is fictitious. Barring the nature trails and stuff here on the land base, again, the main theme is the offshore, the coral reef, John Pennekamp Coral Reef State Park. This is the closest you get to dive in the Caribbean area or any of the subtropical. You know, being in Florida is like a finger that sticks down into the subtropics or into the tropics, hence it is a subtropical area. The Keys, 100,000 years ago, I should give you a brief history. 100,000 years ago, all these keys, the Florida Keys, were underwater. They were living reefs. And it was during the glacier ages that the water was receded from here and left these corals exposed. Being exposed, they died out and left behind their coral remains, their skeletal key limestone remains. And you can look at any of these boulders around here and see that this is indeed an ancient coral reef. If you were tent camping, you'd really experience this is an ancient coral reef. I like to tell people over the phone when they call and say, well, what are we going to need for diving? Virtually all you got to do is come down here, period. They've got everything else you're going to need to get out there, towels, the bathing suits, and everything. It's the nice thing about the dive trip here is their gear is brand new. You know, so I usually don't push any commercial ventures, but this concessionaire has really worked really good with the park system. You know, they do not sell corals or shells that we're trying to teach people not to take. The gift shop, they of course work cooperatively with us. They include, of course, all the novelties and T-shirts, which is everybody's main thing to take home anymore, and that's good because we've gone away from taking corals home and coconuts and plants. Junior Ranger program with the Wild Kingdom classroom at the elementary school. And our part of this is that one of the rangers, we go in there and we give a talk 2 or 3 times a year at the class, in addition to all the other classes too, either about the coral reef or the marine-related areas. We bring them in here, we work the visitor center with them, we work up the ranger station greeting people, registering campers. A lot of times they help me doing native plant transplanting. Every time we have a little bit different system set up. You know, it's dependent on what we're working on that week. If I'm, for instance, you know, native plants is one of our big things, and cleaning of the mangrove trails and nature trails. And okay, most of you kids know these gumbo limbo trees because they got such a neat name. It's easy to remember gumbo limbo. But let me tell you a little bit about it.
Plus, it's got all that stuff all over it.
Sometimes they call this the tourist tree.
I used to have one of these in my yard.
Gumbo limbo?
I got one.
You know why they call it the tourist tree? Sometimes people come down here and they get sunburned so bad that their skin peels. They turn red and peel. Gumbo limbo tree does the same thing. At the end of their semester, after they've done their junior ranger duties, a new group of junior rangers is voted in. The outgoing junior rangers come over here for one last work day with us, and they're sort of advisors to the new junior rangers. And they just tend to get them motivated for new kids to be junior rangers because they come back here and say, we went out in the boat and we picked up litter. I mean, we planted trees. They're sweating. They're filthy dirty, but they're having a blast. And it makes you, again, get back on track with why we as rangers do this. And now I've given you a brief preview of what the park is about. I'd like to go ahead and take you out there and start to tell you some of the marine life and some of the different fishes that you'll see out on the reef. And maybe we'll go ahead and take a little imaginary boat trip out there and sort of give you a sneak preview and hopefully get your enthusiasm up. As you first enter the water, you're going to be entering a whole new world, especially if you haven't been snorkeling or scuba diving, or just haven't done it for a while. Each dive that you do is different. In addition, if you get down on the bottom, you're going to see the stingrays. We got 6 or 8 different stingrays you're going to see down here. A host of schools and schools of grunts and small snappers and various fish that you're going to see up underneath the caves and crevices. Unique thing is you got the daytime feeders such as the snappers and groupers and all. Then you got the nighttime feeders that generally during the day will be held up underneath a cave or a crevice. Everything from the blue tangs to goatfish to angelfish, and some unique fish such as the puffers. These fish are unique. Their protective measures is that whenever they get threatened by a larger predator or a fish that try to eat them, they will take in huge amounts of water and expend their body about 3 times their natural size. And here you can see after they're released, they release all this water, and if you take them out of the water up into the air, they'll suck in the air and swell themselves up. The angelfish, we have 4 or 5 different types of angelfish. The jacks and stuff that you would see down here. It's just literally amazing the numbers and schools of fish that you can see out here. The nice thing about diving Pennekamp Coral Reef State Park is that it's been protected for the 28 years, and the fish really know that they are protected. Like any other game preserve, the animals know where they're protected. And it's important that people become aware of some of the harmful things that you could do to the living environment out there, the coral reefs, for instance. When you're down scuba diving, if you were to pull yourself through with these corals, grab a coral to pull yourself through a cave or something, you could cause an extremely lot of damage to these corals because the corals are very slow growing, and just the simple act of touching them or standing on them or brushing against them with your fins or your tank could cause an extreme damage. The chance to dive some of the wreck sites. This is again where you're going to see schools of fish that are just incredible, the numbers of fish that hide out in these wreck sites. Amazing thing about being a scuba diver is, as I mentioned, you're able to get down there on the bottom. The fish get used to your presence there, and if you got a camera or if you were to take some prepared shrimp down there to feed some of these small tropicals, it's just amazing the clouds of fish that come around you. Food and game fish that would normally be frightened to death of a diver entering the water in the park because they're used to thousands and thousands of divers a year coming out to their area, they actually get used to your presence there. This is one of the fish that you see on the bottom, the hog snapper. The hog snapper is unique in that as it goes from one area to another, from a dark area to a lighter area, you'll see how the colors will actually change. And this is to blend into the background. Some of the fish are able to alter their colors from one area to another, from feeding to mating. And another unique thing that some of the fish have is that the groupers, for instance, and some of the other wrasses are able to alter their sex. They start out as a female, and then later in their life, it's not really determined when, but they're able to change to a male. And that's to assure that enough eggs are hatched out so that the population can continue. It's amazing that the colors of some of these fish are so bright and so brilliant that they're able to use these colors to blend into the background. And the reason for that is you'll notice that many of the sponges are very colorful, very bright, vivid colors. And the tunicates and some of the marine algae and some of just the corals themselves have very brilliant colors. Every color and hue of the rainbow is visible at one time or another, either in the marine environment or in the fishes or the corals. The most obvious fish that you see out there on the reef after you get down in and you're over your initial shock and adventures of diving into the water is the snappers and grunts. Parrotfish are another unique fish that you'll see down here. They don't actually eat the corals, but what they're doing is eating some of the symbiotic algae that lives within the coral polyps, or the cells of the coral polyps. And occasionally when they eat the coral polyps algae, they will get some of the the coral skeleton, the skeletal base, and this they crush up and are able to expel as sand. The pair of fishes, in addition to corals being busted up by just the turbulent flow of the currents, contribute a lot to our sandy areas around these patch reefs. Many of the fish will hang out around the soft corals and wave back and forth. This is their means of protection. They'll tend to blend into the soft corals and try to hide. A lot of times the small tropical fish don't even venture far from the coral reef areas so that they can use this as a habitat and hiding place. Some of the fish are unique in that they'll start out a bright yellow color and then later in their life will turn to a blue color, such as the blue tang. The groupers, as I mentioned, are very unique in fact that not only do they change their sex, but their color patterns change so quickly, be it while they're feeding or as they go from one area to another. I'd like to ask you all, if you have a chance to come on down into the Florida Keys, you have to go by John Pennekamp Coral Reef State Park. It's in Key Largo. It's at the very beginning of the Keys. Really ask that you stop by to, look us up, check out the visitor center, look up Ranger Larry Gavani. I'll be able to help you and probably explain some of the things that you haven't seen. Or if you've already been out to the reef, I can help maybe point out some of the different fish you saw or some of how the marine life is related to each other. I'd like to thank you.